All right. Hey guys, it's Gillian.
Kelly.
Aldani.
And for our PR case, we chose the 2019 college admission scandals, nicknamed Operation Varsity Blues. So basically, what happened in 2019, exactly March 12th, not so long ago, just had the year anniversary, that a scandal rose over many top accredited universities. And basically, the investigation, it was made public on March 12th by the United States federal prosecutors in Massachusetts, and at least 53 people had been charged as a part of this conspiracy, a number of who pled guilty or agreed to plead guilty, with 33 of them being parents of college applicants who are accused of paying more than $25 million between 2011 and 2018 to William Rixinger, who is known as kind of the ringleader and the whole organizer of this scandal. And he used part of that money basically to infiltrate entrance exams such as the ACT and the SAT for college students.
So these were all of the universities slash colleges involved, most of them being well known and renowned schools. Most of the universities had only one or two students that were involved, but Georgetown was the exception to where they had at least 12 students that were involved. So these are all of the people who were charged that were connected to the case. From the college athletics, we have from Yale, Randolph Meredith, who was the women's head soccer coach. From Georgetown University, Gordon Ernst, who was the men's and women's head soccer coach. From UCLA, you have George Salandino, who was the men's head soccer coach. From Wake Forest University, you have William Ferguson, who was the head women's volleyball coach. From Stanford University, you have John Bendemeer, who was the head coach of the sailing team. From University of Austin, Texas, you had Michael Center, who is the head tennis coach. And then from USC, you have Laura Jank, who was the assistant women's coach. And then Allie Kay, who was the women's head soccer coach. And then Joan Bick from USC, who was the men's and women's water polo coach. And then most highly recognized was Donna Hennell, who was the senior associate athletic director from USC. And then all of the people on the right are either connected through a testing site where they were paid to say someone took a test, or paid for somebody to take a test for someone else and pass, or they were a part of the William Singer Foundation, where they were paid to kind of put a player on a team. And then these are all of the parents of the students that were involved and charged. Most known is Lori Loughlin and Felicity Hughes. Lori Loughlin will probably be known from her Full House days, and then Felicity Hoffman from her Beverly Hills Housewives.
And so basically, of who was responsible and who was the fall guy of this entire situation was William Rixinger. He had two foundations, or he was the CEO of the Key Worldwide Foundation, and he owned and operated the Edge College Career Network. that was a for-profit college counseling and preparation business, and he served as the CEO of the Key Worldwide Foundation, a nonprofit corporation that he established. Both of these organizations helped him launder the money, and basically he was charged with racketeering, conspiracy, money laundering conspiracy, and obstruction of justice, and he pled guilty on March 2019.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the key stakeholders in this case. Obviously, the university is involved, which is something that we're going to focus on a lot in this presentation. The celebrities, some of them mentioned the big ones like Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman, but it wasn't just the celebrities. There were a lot of other rich and famous people who were involved in this scheme to get their children into these colleges, and also the children themselves, some of which allegedly were aware that this was going on, and then some of which were not, apparently had no idea that their parents were doing this, so they claim. And then another key stakeholder is the students that were fairly accepted into the university, and those denied, which were pretty angry about the situation, obviously, for reasons we'll talk about a little later on. The standardized tests, those organizations and their administrators of the tests have a lot at stake here, and going forward, they have to think about how they're going to prevent these administrators and from doing this again and making it a more secure test and a fair test, and then the college coaches that were involved. So some of the key messages from the university, the biggest thing is that they pretty much as a whole claim to be the victims in this case. They say that it was just the doing of a few people at the university, but not the institution itself. And they say that that's not what they stand for and not what they represent. So a lot of people ask, like, how is this going to change going forward, and like what are the consequences going to be? And you have coaches that Kelly mentioned earlier from almost all the universities: USC, UCLA, Stanford, Georgetown, Yale, Wake Forest, University of Texas at Austin, and San Diego. Almost all of them either fired coaches or placed them on leave, and then moving forward, they plan to open an investigation of their own and make improvements. So the way that they did this, some of the action steps were to, like, some schools would use the money received in the connection with the alleged scheme to fund scholarships for underprivileged students. Like, for example, the USC was doing this. And they were also making changes to their oversight and review of the student athletes for the following year, is what a letter that the interim president, Wanda Austin, said. For example, this is a quote from USC, which is, again, like pretty much the epicenter of this whole scandal. It was the biggest one. Every student athlete candidate's file will be reviewed on 3 levels: by the head coach, the senior sports administrator overseeing the team, and the USC Office of Athletics Compliance, before being sent to the admissions staff. The head coach will certify in writing that the student is being recruited for athletic abilities. Athletic rosters will be audited at the beginning and end of every academic year and cross-checked with admissions list. So you see the university sending out the message that they're trying to make improvements and doing their own investigations to prevent this from ever happening again. So how did the public respond to this? a lot of people were outraged, and with good reason. A lot of parents and students, they took to the internet, such as Twitter. You saw a lot of response on there, voicing their reactions and their concerns. Mothers saying that they're glad their children didn't get accepted into the school if something like this was going on. As I mentioned earlier, there were students who got in through a legal method, and those who didn't get in. Those are important stakeholders, because it was kind of a slap in the face for those who worked so hard to get in, and then you see other people just getting in from this bribery. And then for those who didn't get in, they basically see it as, well, maybe their chances were ruined from these people that just paid their way through. um, it kind of taints the reputations of these elite colleges, that have been around for so many years. And I think that will be around for a while, at least, that knowledge won't just go away, that something like this happened, even if it was just a few people, as they claim. These universities still have that reputation, and I think there will be some distrust in the system going forward. People were shocked. A lot of people were shocked by this, and others say that they weren't surprised, and said that it was already unfair. For example, someone wrote, "Exposing the people involved in the admissions scandal has given the public a sense of how readily the system can be manipulated by wealth." So a lot of people you have there claiming that the college system is already set up so that the wealthy can get ahead with things like legacy and just paying their way through, and that these bribes, although these are uncovered, there's probably a lot more.
And so, with this critical analysis, one of the things that we were kind of looking at was how effective were the messages that were delivered. And were they effective? No, not many, just because of how some of the people involved in this case had to react. Basically, there was one of the famous cases with Lori Loughlin and Massimo Giuliani. He has two daughters, Olivia and Isabella, and and they're both very affluent in the beauty influencer community, and they both had to delete their social media platforms for about 6 months following this entire scandal. They only recently just started posting again on social media, and basically this represented of how much of a backlash and an outrage this was. And this just continued on going. Like, many parents and trustees were upset with the universities that they even took part in this. And since this case was so recent, the backlash is still going on.
So what is the public relations lesson in this case? As we've seen in a lot of other cases that we've studied and learned through doing a lot of the case cards, is that you should always be transparent with your audience. Be 100% honest. That's always the best way to go in these situations. Bribery is obviously unacceptable in the business world and should have never taken place, especially with something so important as this. And to always take ownership of your actions immediately, and if possible, get ahead of the situation. Obviously, these investigations and news about the scandal happened, after the bribes were already done. But if possible, you should always get ahead of the situation. And in this situation, if you know if the universities had come out, if they knew something and come out earlier, uh, there could have been less of a negative reaction, and they could have maybe de-escalated the situation a little bit.